Peace, peace, peace. Welcome back to my YouTube channel. For those of you who don't know, it's your boy vicslanghope. And today's video is a continuation of the video that I previously made about navigating the shelter system. So I didn't want to put a lot of information into that video because I understand, people's attention spans. So I figured maybe I should divide the videos. And this one I'm going to go a little more in depth about like what is kind of like really going on in the shelter system. At least this is just from my point of view. It doesn't mean it happens the same way for other people. I'm just sharing my experiences and my insight. So when you're in the shelter, there's a housing case manager, right? And this is the person that, like, once your case manager approves that, okay, you have a job and you're submitting pay stubs, you're doing whatever you're doing, you're meeting your goals, right? Because they set the same goals basically for everybody. So once your case manager realizes and she says, okay, this person is meeting their goals, he's saving his money, he's doing what he has to do, they send you to talk to the case manager. And when you talk, to the housing case manager. So when you speak to the housing case manager, this is the person that is in charge of setting you up with housing, right? So this is the person that he has the information about where there's an open house, what is going on over here, what is going on over there, where are the properties, and so forth. They also have a car, at least this is the shelter that I was in. I don't know if every shelter operates like this. They have a car where they used to kind of like drive people to the site, like wherever there was a sighting of a room and stuff like that. They used to drive people there. And one of the things that the housing case manager told me, right? He said, listen, because I was a person that, like, I came home from prison. I really didn't want to live around people. I really didn't want to go into a room situation. So I was kind of like one of those people that was like, I wanted to get my own apartment, whether it was a studio, whether it was a one bedroom, that's what I really wanted to get. Like, I just didn't want to share the bath. I was tired of sharing the bathroom. I was sharing the bathroom in prison, come home to a shelter, you sharing the bathroom in the shelter. I just kind of like didn't want to move into a place where I would be paying rent and doing these things and still having to share the bathroom. That was just kind of how I felt. So he was straight up with me. He told me, look, man, he said, I'm not going to lie. The way the housing market worked, bro, he said, like, yo, they prioritize women with kids. Not the housing market, but like the shelters and stuff like that, right? He was like, yo, they prioritize women with kids, women, and then like men. Like, and that's just how it works. Like, I'm just being real with you. So oftentimes, a lot of like the properties, another thing is when you're in the shelter, you can get a voucher, right? So they had like 2 voucher programs. I forgot the names of them. But the vouchers were basically insured by like the state or by the city. And basically it just meant that if you had a voucher, all you had to pay was 30% of your rent and the city would pay the rest. So that was a good little thing, right? That's something that is good about being in the shelter, that you're able to get a voucher. The con to that's a pro, right? That was a pro that I just mentioned. The con to that is that a lot of landlords, when they see you got a voucher, oftentimes they might not want you, especially if you're a man, right? But oftentimes they don't care. Like some landlords, they don't care, right? They just don't want you because they feel as though you have they just have a negative stigma to people that have a voucher. And a lot of times people that have a voucher usually came from the shelter. And a lot of landlords, they have this thing about like, oh, people that come from shelters, they damage the property, they really don't care, like they don't take care of the place, like they just have like this negative stigma, right? Which probably they dealt with a lot of issues from people that came with shelters before. So anyway, I had 2 vouchers, and the vouchers, of course, they're going to be beneficial to me because at the end of the day, I only got to pay 30% of my rent. But then at the same time, is people are looking at people who have vouchers in a certain way. So if you know realtors and you know certain people that could plug you in, a lot of times it's who you know, not what you know. So if you know certain people, they could probably make it happen for you. They could probably plug you in. They could speak for you and so forth. But a lot of times, the shelter system is like a scam, kind of. Like, if you really think about it. Like, I met people in the shelter system that was there for years, especially single men. They were there for years. Like, I met a guy, he was in the shelter system for like 5 years, and he was waiting on Section 8, and he had finally got it when I went there. So another thing they tell you is you have to go to welfare. As soon as you get there, they tell you got to go to welfare, you got to open up your case, and you got to get cash assistance. And a lot of times they'll tell you, oh, this is how we pay for the food that we feed you, and et cetera, et cetera. But shelters are already getting grants a lot of times, right? They're getting money from the city to do these things, right? To house people, to feed them, to do certain things, right? So, but they also be like, oh, well, no, you also got to go there. You also got to go to HRA. And now HRA, welfare, is playing games with you. A lot of times they used to do that with me, right? I was working and I had to go do it for the shelter purposes. And a lot of times you tell them, oh, I just need this for the shelter purposes, right? And, you know, they deny you. So then the shelter tells you, oh, no, you got to go back. You got to resubmit. So it was just like a hassle, right? You have to keep going back to welfare. You have to keep, you know, setting these appointments. And if you've been to these HRA appointments, you know you got to stop doing certain things. Sometimes you can't go to work. Like, it's just annoying and tedious, right? So this is just the cycle that they put you through. They just put you through going over there. And if you got a job, you know, a lot of times they deny you. It'd be a lot of miscommunication. So they tell you that they need the money to feed you, but in reality, is the shelter is just milking HRA, right? It's just beneficial, right? So, but one thing I would say is that, like, yeah, like if you're a single man in a shelter system, like, it's hard. It's hard to get a place. You know, a lot of times you got to do your own work. You got to put your own work in. Like, I don't suggest anybody just sit there and wait on the shelter. Like, you know, they like the brother said that was working there. He told me, like, yo, they work way faster for like women with kids and single women, right? Or women that might have come from domestic situations. But he was just saying for men, like, it's not the same thing. Like, you're better off going out there and putting in your own work a lot of time, because otherwise you probably just end up sitting there, you know, just being hopeful that they're gonna get you something, and they really not. And some of the times the properties that they show these people be kind of like funny. Like, I went to a property, this dude drove me to a property in Queens, and it just looked crazy. It looked like the door was broken in. When we went upstairs and looked at the rooms, there was another door that was broken. Like, it just, a lot of times the places be an inconvenience. They be far away from the train. Like, you got to take 2 buses after you get off the train. Like, it just be places that a lot of people don't want to live in. And this is like the housing that they be trying to give to people that are in need, right? Unfortunately, the real issue is that they just don't have enough housing for everybody. Like, if you think about it, there's not even enough jobs for everybody. Like, if everybody that was unemployed wanted to work, they don't have enough jobs for everybody. They don't have enough housing for everybody. So that's really the big problem, right? The city, our government, is not really investing in the homelessness issue that we have at hand. So what happens is a lot of people end up shacking up with family, right? It's a lot of people living in one apartment. It'll be like 5, 6, 7, 8 people, right? And this is what happens throughout New York City, right? A lot of people are staying with other people. They're shacking up, or some people are just homeless in the streets, or they in the shelters. And the mayor, right, he hasn't taken the initiative to really put a lot of money, even though he gets a housing budget, right? He doesn't put it into like homeless shelters and like units that these people can actually pay for. He puts it into luxurious apartments, right? And then he makes it like 20% for people of low income, but that does not really curb the homelessness issues. Like, you think you're just gonna build luxury apartments and make 20% of the units for people who are coming out of the shelters or people who are of low income? That doesn't make any sense. Like, you need to build properties that are specifically for these people so they can get out and have a place to live. So until that becomes the main issue, like, yeah, I don't see the shelter system getting any better. So I just want you to be mindful of that. I don't, like, anybody that want to go there, like, I'm not discouraging nobody. I'm just saying that, like, do not go there thinking that, oh, like, they're gonna save you from whatever distress or whatever situation you're in. There's a place where, you know what I'm saying, you're gonna get some benefit. The most beneficial thing you might get from there is a voucher, right? Like, to pay less rent. And they might help you find a job, maybe, right? But for the most part, you gotta put your own work in. You gotta do what you gotta do to get out your situation. There's pros and there's cons. You know, like, you know, it's a place to stay. It's a place to kind of like, it's uncomfortable. It makes you uncomfortable. So a lot of times we grow from uncomfortable moments. So that's one thing that the shelter did for me. And when I was in the shelter, I was on parole too. So it just complicated situations. I was in the shelter. I was on parole, and then like I ended up having like the shelter was trying to move me to the Bronx. I didn't really want to go to the Bronx. I didn't want to be in the Bronx. I didn't want to see nobody. So I tried to tell the supervisor, like, oh, I tried to tell her about my situation, and she still moved me to the Bronx. So I didn't go to the Bronx. I was just like, I'm not going. Like, so I didn't go. They sent me back to Randall's Island from the Bronx. And then I lost my single room. I lost my bed. I was on parole, so my parole officer used to go there. I thought about running on parole at the time. It was just like, it was a lot of stuff was getting hectic. When I went back to the shelter, they put me in a 4-man room. And like I said before, like sometimes these dudes don't be showering. Sometimes these dudes have drug addiction problems or they have mental health problems. And it was hard for me to deal with that. It was hard for me to deal with being in a room with 4 dudes who I don't know if they're stable. I don't know what's going on. You know, you almost feel like you're in prison all over again. You got to sleep with your eyes open. You can't really fully relax because you never know what people might do, right? And shelters are not the safest place. It's another thing. So you have to be aware. I mean, a lot of them have metal detectors and stuff. But again, like I mentioned before, a lot of people be sneaking stuff in. So it's almost like you're in jail. You got to be aware about what's going on. You got to be aware of your surroundings. So it's a very uncomfortable place. But a lot of good things come from uncomfortability. You know, if that's a word. A lot of good things come from you being uncomfortable. The moment you become complacent, the moment you become comfortable, the moment you become relaxed, you tend to lose sight of certain things. So the shelter is good for that because it never makes you get comfortable. At least for the people that you know that want it, that got that drive. Other people that, you know, have drug addiction and mental health issues, they're already at where they at. Not saying that they can't come back, but I'm just saying they're already just thinking about getting high or doing other things, you know. So if you're focused, the shelter will definitely keep you in an uncomfortable position that will make you keep working and trying to get yourself together. So yeah, so that's my story. That's my experience, and hopefully it helps some of y'all, and hopefully, you know, it keeps us grounded and not giving up. And like, if you got to go through the shelter system, go through the shelter system, but don't forget, like, you're just there for a small period of time, and don't stop putting in your own work. But let me know what y'all think. If y'all got some other stuff to share, some other tips to add on, if y'all been in the shelter yourself, put it in the comment section. Peace.